Hi, welcome. Welcome in, welcome back to Cardinal Rose Tarot. All of a sudden, stains just came in my mind. It's been a while since I've something. So that's gonna maybe mean something to someone. Stained. That song always reminds me of my brother. Yeah, it's nice to have that come through. It's a nice little meaning for me there too. So I just wanted to come in and update. This isn't necessarily going to be a card layout today. This is going to be me doing some more follow-up on the law tube and identity theft stuff that my life is intersecting around in this really bizarre way. My most recent live stream covers it in that I'm learning that my family, the Vogel family, may have had some intersections to Eddie Vogel, who was a mobster in the Chicago outfit. And if you're interested in that background relative to this upload that I'm doing today, it's a shorty. It's only like, I think 15 minutes or so long, maybe 20 minutes, where I just talk about it because it was really a shocking thing for me to find out, and also a little bit unsettling. And I've been going down the rabbit hole since then and researching it all and realizing that it may intersect with this separate suspicion I've been having going on a year now that someone's trying to steal my identity. So as I started realizing I think someone may be trying to steal my identity, I also started having to look at the fact that it might be someone in my family. And that was really upsetting, and I haven't like put any accusations out there or anything, but I've had to consider that as a possibility as I've tried to sort through all of this information. And so I'm just going to do, this is like kind of where I am to date in terms of looking into all this. And again, if it's of interest to you, great. A lot of the reason I'm doing it though is just to protect myself, because I've been taking steps over the last year to protect my identity once I started realizing I thought someone was stealing it. So I know this is a tarot channel. This is in a playlist that has to do with law tube, identity theft, and whatnot. This isn't necessarily going to be of interest to you if you're here for cards, although I think I'm going to pull some cards at the end of this little synopsis that I'm going to give. And then hopefully try to move back towards cards for a while, because this is going to bring me up to date personally where I'm at with all of what I've been looking into for the most part. Tying up the loop. I don't know all of how this connects still, but this is everything I know to this point, and it's to protect myself. So there's a very strange, bizarre intersection with all of this happening around not my dad's family, the Vogels, but my mom's family. And it involves my uncle by marriage. He's not a blood relative. He's my uncle by marriage. His name was Charles Grant Smith. He passed away last year, and I talked about him on here, on this channel. I celebrated him. If you scroll back, you can see his pictures in the community tab. I honored him on my Instagram page. I continue to honor him. I have a lot of his keepsakes because he didn't have any children. I might be the closest he had to having a child. I don't know. There might have been other people in his life that I never knew about that had a similar role. But I was basically sort of like a de facto kid for my aunt and uncle when they wanted to hang out with a kid, but they didn't have kids. They were very adventurous and liked to live their adult lives. So they, I think, my aunt definitely intended not to have kids. I don't know about my uncle, if that made him sad or what. But anyways, the whole identity theft kickoff for me started last year when my uncle was dying. And, it was very emotional for me. We were reunited. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, and they were a huge part of my childhood. And I talk all about this on this channel and other readings. So it was very healing for me and for him, I think, because he didn't die alone. I was there visiting, not just his attorney, right? Because his attorney was the only person visiting him. And once I realized from my other family members that he was dying, I was like, I'm going to go see him. I want to go spend his end of life with him as much as I can. So I was going and visiting him once a week at his adult family home down in Beaverton, Oregon. And I was very honored. I was with him the day he died. I wasn't there in the moment, and it was annoying. Partly it's because his attorney was there And I had to insist that his attorney and the caregiver leave the room so that I could have some privacy to say my personal goodbyes to him, which is not an untoward thing to ask for as a relative, right? But I had to ask. They weren't going to leave the room. They were going to just, I don't know if they were thinking they were just going to sit in with me the whole time I sat in there. But I finally had to assert myself and say, I want some time alone with my uncle to say, fine, they had a friendship. I'm not comfortable with that, though. I don't know. I don't want to spend my uncle's end of life with a stranger. So I had my private moment with him, said my goodbyes, cried my tears. It was very emotional, and I left. And so his attorney got to be the one to spend his final moments with him, because I wasn't going to tell him to go away. I didn't know the depth or the nature of their relationship. Maybe I didn't even have the right, as if that was his power of attorney. So then fast forward a couple, I think maybe like a month, where I ended up getting a bunch of my uncle's items, as I said a few minutes ago. And I brought them all home. I had met with his attorney in his law offices, brought these items home, and started going through them and reminiscing and like just going through my own healing process about my uncle's death. And I found this amazing picture of him on the wing of his plane. He had a small single engine plane. He was a pilot. And he took me and my dad in it a few times up in this plane. He ended up selling the plane because two of his best friends died in a plane crash. And it was very close to home for him. It could have been them. In fact, that again is another video I've talked about on here on this channel. That story, I've told it in another video. So my uncle eventually sold the plane, but they're great memories for me of the fact that my dad and I got to go in his plane with him, and we flew to the coast with my aunt, right? There's a lot of stories about him when he had that plane. So when I found that picture and his items, I was so happy, and I kept it out, and I placed it right here on my altar so that I could look at it and honor him while I was grieving. The night that I did that, I sat that here, I prayed, I gazed at it, I honored him. I just had a private hour or so just with my altar and his picture. So it was very meaningful, okay? It wasn't like I just put the picture there as an afterthought. I put the picture there, I sat down, I meditated, I honored him, I cried again. I sent my prayers up to God, thanking him for putting my uncle in my life, because some of the only really truly fun, carefree times I had as a child were with him and my aunt. And that's not to disparage my dad, it's just the truth. My dad had his own stuff he was dealing with. So I love my uncle, but he could be a dick. You know, he was not a very nice person sometimes to other adults, but he was great with me as a kid, right? So what happened is I put that picture there, meditate with it. That was going to be my plan, to leave it there so that I could be doing my grief work around it. I get up the next morning, the picture's fucking gone, okay? And I knew, I can't even describe what that felt like. I had the most dread, cold, someone walked over my grave, like, feeling of something is wrong. Like, it was just massive. It was when your body system gives you like a massive alert system that something is wrong, pay attention, like the hairs on your neck standing up, all of that happened in that instant when that picture was gone. And I was like, this isn't right. I know that I put that picture there. I know my mind. I know what's going on. Somebody came in here overnight while I was asleep and took my picture. And I used to not even have any security on this door at all. Like, it has a lock. I barely have any now. It's a pretty janky door and setup. But I had, maybe I don't even know if the door was locked that night, okay? Because I felt so safe here where I am that I wasn't even worried or thinking like that where I am living here. I felt totally safe, totally secure, trusting everyone around me, even my neighbors, right? So that someone came in here, I was like, oh, fuck no, something is very wrong around me. It's like I woke up in an instant and was like, something is wrong. That picture should not be gone. You know you're not crazy because you just spent an hour with it in meditation last night. So don't let anyone make you think that you're crazy. You know that picture is gone. But I also knew if I say anything, it's going to be turned around on me. And I am going to be I'm going to start being gaslit by whoever I tell that to. So I just kept my mouth shut. But I clued in right away. My whole body's like, wake up, something is wrong around you, okay? So part of the reason I'm also this is because if your body's telling you things like that, it's good to listen to. Don't let people gaslight you. Yes, you have to keep your feet on the ground. You have to use discernment. You have to use your reason. You can't only use your gut instincts. You have to stay connected to your reason, or else trusting yourself can go take you down a deep end where you go so deep into like paranoia and shit that you're not thinking clearly anymore. So I'm trying to warn people away from that too. I've had to be very careful about that this whole last year. Bide my time, watch and wait, observe, make notes, keep a chart, discern where are these attacks coming from, what is going on, right? So that was the very first clue in that this, because I was like, why would that be happening? Why would someone have taken that picture? Possibly to make me doubt myself, make me think I'm going crazy, mess with my mind, just, like COINTELPRO type shit, except for at that point I was like, well, who am I to even be messed with like that? So it would seem like it would be more personal is what I was thinking. Like someone's personally doing this to me for some reason. Either they're fucking with my head. The only other thing I could think of was that they have some interest in my uncle or my identity in some way, or they're going to use this in some kind of magical workings. Those were all the only things I really had to work with at the time. But I was right away, maybe I was a cop in another life or something. Oh my God, that'd be wild because I'm not a very pro-cop person. But it's like I need to go into investigative mode is what I was thinking. So then I don't really have a lot else other than that the Grant Smith thing started to be like an alarm system for me, right? But I've otherwise just been kind of, that's weird. Grant Smith, what's the deal with that? Well, now all of a sudden, as I started looking into the LawTube and Hella thing and being like, do these people intersect with this other story that have to do with my dad and his possible relationship with Eddie Vogel? And again, this is all in the other video, so I'm not going to do the whole recounting here. It's in my last live stream, the way I discovered those intersections in my life. My former father, in the JFK files, he was a former federal investigator during the Chicago outfit years. Okay, so that's all. This is going to sound really weird and super conspiracy without that background. So it's all right in the playlist if this is at all of interest to you. So I start, as I'm looking into the whole Hella Dolly Talk LawTube, there's a white supremacist LawTube conspiracy going on. They're trying to take over the narrative in the legal system in the US and put forth either a white supremacist or a far right-wing conservative, or both, I think it's both, agenda in the legal system, right? Because the fascist creep, the whole agenda of the fascist creep is to move in positions of power in the United States, okay? So that they can affect the kind of fascism that they want to here. So here's this Grant Smith Ellis guy connected to Hell, and I'm like, well, that's a weird intersection yet again. Grant Smith Ellis, Grant Smith LawTube, Grant Smith legal agenda, Grant Smith connected to Hella, connected to my family, connected to Eddie Vogel, right? So it's all very weird. There's links in this description box of this live stream to these accounts. So I'm like, well, who is Grant Smith Ellis? Well, he's somebody that regularly raises donations for himself, and I put links to that. He's a disability advocate, which I honor. I honor disability advocacy in my life and in social work, and I consider myself an advocate and an ally, although that's not been the center of my advocacy work. I feel and consider myself an ally. So he says he's a disability advocate who's doing legal cannabis work. He says he's been in law school. He has a very sad backstory about his family abandoning him and all this, and now he's in law school and he needs your donations over and over. He's asking for donations constantly. It's weird that he has the name Grant Smith. It's weird that he intersects with the Hella Dolly Talk that intersect with me in some way having to do with the Eddie Vogel thing. I don't understand what any of it means, other than on his Instagram, he did this very laborious post to make a Black woman dispensary owner look very suspect and like smeared her all over one of his posts. And so to me, I'm like, well, that might be where his angle is like trying to make sure that the cannabis world and cannabis dollars stay majority white owned, because that would be a totally legitimate, not legitimate in my mind, but that would be a completely, in their mind, thing that they need to try to corner the market on, right? Because there was this whole movement about supporting Black owned, right? Black people who have been criminalized for selling weed and now imprisoned for having sold weed. Now all of a sudden these white power brokers are going to come in and get rich off weed. Fuck that, right? That was the conversation as the whole decriminalization ball got rolling. Well, I think this guy might be part of his thing, is like, we want to try to make sure that we corner the market on cannabis dollars, and we're going to use this community identity in order to do it. I think they're weaponizing identity. That's what I think they're doing. And it's weird because that's what they were accusing us of. So I think that's all very interesting. And again, I don't know how it all comes together. I have no idea why it intersects around my life in any way, other than I think because of my anti-racism organized during the first Trump administration, because possibly, I don't know, if my family is related to Eddie Vogel was Jewish. And so if there are if there's revenge schemes being carried out by the other gangs involved in that, they could be anti-Semitic, right? Possibly. So these are the things I'm exploring at present. I did that in part, feeling my identity. I thought, well, I want to protect my assets from them. So I better get serious and make a will, right? I better start tying up my life. I went and got a long-term health care insurance plan, went and did my estate, right? Live stream, sorry, it just got interrupted for a second. I'm going to try to wrap it up now. So these are things to watch for if you're worried about your own identity and you're doing things like I'm doing, which is like starting my own word mark, like starting an NFT, and things that I'm now trying to protect, like this channel, my creative work, my intellectual work. One of the ways that I went about that was doing a word mark, and I got legal representation. Well, they went shady on me. They went sideways, and I don't like it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. But they've notified me, your word mark is almost done. We go, they sent me the information, and I noticed my middle initial as owner is missing. And I use my middle initial in everything. I use it legally. I use it in my signature. I use it in my business. I use it everywhere. I learned that from my dad as a way to protect my identity and to distinguish myself from other people that had my same name. So when I reached out to them right away and said, hey, I noticed my name doesn't have my middle initial. Can you please add that to this so that it's reflected on the website?